How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Choose or Die. This is a new film from Netflix, just came out April 15th, 2022, and is directed by Toby Meakins and stars Iola and Asa Butterfield, and also features a special voice role from Robert Englund. Always great to hear from him. Really cool to hear Freddy Krueger's voice. Anyway, this is about two friends who discover an old-timey retro cassette game, and they decide to play it because there's still a prize attached to it. However, they soon find that the game is cursed, it's evil, and it can manipulate the world around them. Every night at 2 in the morning, there's going to be a new round, and they have to make the right decisions and try to avoid horrible bloody death. And as they play the game, they have to figure out where the game came from and how to beat it. Now, if you hear this description, it sounds a lot like a Blumhouse movie. I saw the trailer and I thought this feels more like Netflix. This feels more like Blumhouse than Netflix, and there's a key distinction there. Blumhouse movies are typically kind of formulaic, dumb teen horror, but they're usually pretty fun. You know, it's just cheesy horror movie fun, whatever, it's a Blumhouse movie. Netflix is typically very serious. So when you have a movie structured like a Blumhouse movie, but it has none of that joy and levity of a Blumhouse movie, and instead it's so serious, you get this weird thing where the movie is super dumb and very, very stupid, but it doesn't know it. It 100% thinks it's the scariest thing ever, and to be honest, this movie isn't very good. But before I talk about this too much, I do want to say I'm not a comedy teardown channel, and I'm not an angry rant channel. And I almost didn't review this movie because I didn't know if I could talk about it without devolving into an angry rant. And this is not a great movie. It's one of the few movies that actually managed to give me a headache. And I basically said, I watched the movie anyway. I should talk about it. I should share my opinion. And I do want to keep up with the new horror scene. So I gave myself a couple days to cool down and get my thoughts together and hopefully present this in an organized fashion and deconstruct the movie and figure out why it doesn't work. So let's try to avoid angry ranting and just analyze the movie. First of all, let's talk about the pro. All the actors in this movie do they do a good job with what they're given. None of the actors are really bad, and I do like the leads well enough. And also, Robert Englund. He's the voice of the game. It's great to see Robert Englund. So the actors do a good job with what they're given. But now the cons, and the cons really start to pile on. First of all, there's not the rules. There's not a good enough sense of choice in a movie called Choose or Die. The rules and the logic are messed up where it doesn't seem like you could really do anything. The scares just aren't very scary, and a lot of the scares are very silly, and the movie doesn't know that. And that's the third killer flaw with this movie, is there's a little bit of banter between the best friends, but other than that, no humor. It thinks it's the scariest thing ever, when a lot of the stuff they're doing is really cheesy. And I look at it and I'm like, if this scene was in an 80s movie, I would have thought it was great. It would have been cheesy fun. The problem is the tone in which they do this, you know? There's no levity behind it. You know, so when something silly happens, it just doesn't feel silly. It feels like, you know, they think it's serious, you know? And that's really what gets the movie, is the tone here. Let's talk about these in more depth. So the choices. Look at a good choice movie. For example, Would You Rather, which isn't a Netflix movie, but when it streamed on Netflix, it got really, really popular. Would You Rather was one of those things where you're constantly analyzing, constantly figuring out, what would I do? Would that be the right choice? Is that the best way to go about it? And it really lets you analyze. When you do choice-based movies, you really have to get the audience engaged, and then when you pick what you think is the right option, but it twists around in this weird monkey's paw way and you realize, oh no, I messed up, it has to be a good twist reveal, right? Well, here, pretty early on, you learn that there's no choice. You're given two very vague options, usually just one word apiece, one or two words, and it's not enough to analyze them. And then you quickly realize that it's just picking the flavor of the bad thing that's about to happen. There's no good option, no way to avoid this. So you pick one vague option and watch the game do a bad thing based on what you picked. And in turn, like a writer might think, that gives me an excuse to do a ton of scary things. But it leads to disconnect, thinking, I could just let this game play itself. What do my choices matter? Just go through the game, watch it mow down people, and just kind of sit there, And I mean, there is a little bit of choices later on, but it's not like, oh, I made the right one. I mean, like, for real, if they had shown just one choice where the character got off completely scot-free because they made the smart decision, that would have looped you in so much more. But the idea of just picking the flavor of your bad choice, what's there to that? And yeah, that's a big problem. And also, the scares. Not scary. There's so many things in this movie that it's kind of baffling that some people who made this, writers, studio people, whatever, that they would come up with this situation and think, yeah, that's scary. Like, they're bafflingly unscary, and some of them very, very stupid, and I have to wonder who came up with these, unless they were writing for a comedy, and then the director didn't know that and turned it into a scary movie. I don't know. But there's things like the mom's in danger, and the girl's on the phone and can't actually see her, but the computer displays a sort of old-timey video game, and the mom's being chased by a rat throughout the apartment, and the mom, the rat, and the apartment are in this video game, and she has to use that to kind of guide her mom to safety. And I get, not being able to see it, A, saves money on the rat, but also makes it kind of vaguer. But it feels like you got your mom sucked into a video game. I saw this and I'm like, they think this is scary? This is super cheesy. It's super silly. Your mom's in a video game. I mean, that was dumb. Later on in the movie, a character dies from spitting up cassette tape. Again, if this wasn't a cheesy 80s movie, that would be awesome. But they think it's actually scary to die from spitting out cassette tape. I don't know. And also, I won't give it away, but when the movie gets to the boss battle section, oh my gosh, the boss battle section is hilarious. And I don't think it knows it's hilarious. It is very, very stupid. And it made me wish that this scene was in a straight-up comedy, because it could have been really funny if it was in a straight-up comedy. But it wasn't. And, yeah, the humor. Like I said, there's banter between the two main characters. And that's about it. I wish this movie was cheesy. The old-timey 80s cassette tape would have been all the excuse you needed to do an 80s style throwback movie. But rather than looking like an 80s movie or feeling like an 80s movie, it looks and feels like a serious Netflix movie. And this movie just needed levity. It just needed humor. Don't be serious. The script is stupid. Make a stupid movie. Don't make a serious movie out of a stupid script. A guy dies by spitting up VHS tape. That is not a serious movie thing to do. So yeah, that's your big thing. No rules, stupid scares, not a comedy. Should have been a comedy. And yeah, that's kind of 3 strikes you're out type of deal. And this movie really isn't great. I could almost recommend it as a lazy Saturday afternoon movie. I could almost recommend it as a so bad it's good movie. But to be honest, it's not quite silly enough to be a so bad it's good movie. And I wouldn't really recommend it as a lazy Saturday afternoon movie because, like I said, it gave me a headache. So, really, not the best thing ever. I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the deeper dive section. I'm going to be talking a bit more about the plot. I'll be avoiding major spoilers, but I do want to analyze things a little bit deeper. We start off with a prologue. This guy and his family, the guy's into 80s retro video games, and he finds the cassette tape, and he starts to play it when it says, "What do you want to do? Get up or go get another beer?" And he is like, wait a minute, that's not a game, that's real life. Why want another beer? And another one just appears in front of him. But then he thinks he hears something behind him, and the label on the beer bottle says, "Behind you." So he turns around, but there's nothing there. And the beer bottle says something like, "Haha, got you." That's silly, right? Like, the idea that a beer bottle would A, communicate with you, but B, pull off a prank? That's silly. That's really silly. But anyway, he then gets a vague prompt. Her ears or his tongue. And he doesn't know what that means. And he steps away from the computer and hears a loud ringing in his ear. And then he finds that his wife has cut off his son's tongue. So she was controlled. The game's manipulating reality. But also, a quick point out, this movie's called Choose or Die. I don't think he chose here. He chose, but he didn't die. He chose. He didn't choose. He didn't. And the game chose for him. So this movie really should be called Choose or We'll Just Choose For You. And you could literally just not play this game and just sit there AFK and watch the computer just play the game for you, and all you would have to deal with is ringing in your ears. Okay, whatever. After that, you get the opening credits, and I do actually like the opening credits. It's a bunch of green computer text, and if you read it, you can kind of infer how the rest of this prologue guy's game went, ending with him making copies of the tape and sending them out into the world. So I did like the opening credits. Anyway, we then jump to our main character. It's this girl. She's a janitor, and her job is literally cleaning up a big empty room in an office building every day, even though no one uses it. And they do speculate, why are we cleaning up an empty office building that no one uses every single day? But this plot goes nowhere, so whatever. But anyway, she's a janitor. Her mom doesn't work, so she's supporting her mother. She's a drug addict because her brother, the mom's son, drowned in a pool. And that gets you a few scary sequences later, I guess. And you do constantly hear this audio tape, "Hey, Mom, I want to go swimming." And it's okay. It's a little bit of a backstory, but it's not super integrated. And actually, one thing happens towards the end of the movie, and you think, okay, they're going to tie this into the kid from the beginning, right? Because it's a similar situation. But no, they just don't, so whatever. But anyway, she wants a better job. She wants to help support her family. She wants to become a programmer, but she dropped out of college and is not finding any work. So that classic dream of getting out of the slums and becoming a computer programmer, right? She has a friend who owns a small tech business called Bite Me, And the first time you see him, he's actually dressed up like Fry from Futurama, so I'll give you a point to the costume team for that. I thought that was funny. But anyway, he has a business where he cleans up and restores old tech, and she'll go out and find things for him and sell them to him, and she can make some extra money that way. And that's where they find the tape. An old school 80s cassette tape game. None of them have ever heard of it. They don't know what it is. And they find the phone number on the inside, and the guy goes, sometimes these prizes are unclaimed. Maybe we could actually get the money. And they call the number to see if it's still up and running. And it is. And that's where we first hear Robert Englund playing himself. So whoever made the game got Robert Englund as himself to host it. And that's really fun, you know? So hey, Robert Englund's there. Anyway, they realize the prize is still up. So she works on digitizing it and putting it in her computer and says, meet me at the cafe at 2 a.m. and we'll take a look at this. Of course he doesn't show up because he's busy working, but she's in the cafe, she gets the game going, and it says cake or pie and a little arrow, and it pans over to the menu, and there's cake or pie on the menu. And then again, the out of touch part of this movie, it pans over to the menu, cake or pie, and then a musical's cue, bum bum, like cake or pie is scary, right? But, you know, she chooses coffee. No, not cake or pie, coffee or cake, sorry. She chooses coffee, and the girl starts filling it, and then the game goes, would you like to take a break? And she goes, yes. And then the waitress starts breaking glass, and you see the game can control the world around them, and the game then goes, should she continue breaking stuff or should she clean up? And she goes, clean up, of course. And the girl starts eating the glass. So, analyzing this here, the idea of break being one of your choices and going, yeah, I'll take a break, but then it turns out, no, I meant breaking things in real life. That's a good twist. That's the word, but a double meaning. And no, we're not taking a break, we're breaking things. Okay, that works. But then the other one, clean up, and it's just her eating the glass? That's lazy. I mean, I get like, huh, she's cleaning up by eating it, but she's getting blood all over the floor. That's not clean, that's messier, if anything. But it's just not the clever monkey's paw twist. There should have been like a clue that she missed to get this outcome. It's just, hey, anything you pick, it's gonna be bad, and that's the first indication of that. That anything you pick is gonna be bad, your choices don't matter, and why bother? And that's where you get the initial disconnect with this movie. Anyway, so she takes the tape back, she tries to convince her friend, and the two eventually start playing this game. It happens every day at 2 a.m., and they have a few levels to get through. It's 4 main levels and then a boss, and every time the choices are gonna be vague or lead to some silly mini game, you know, and every now and then they'll do something like, you know, go through a red or blue door and then be pulled into like a weird pool dimension, but then they'll still question things about the game later. I'm like, stop, you just got pulled into a weird alternate dimension. Stop trying to figure out the logic behind this game. It's magical, you know? Anything can happen. And yeah, it's just the rest of the movie is pretty disappointing, you know? It's, for the most part, the choices, those are always going to be bad no matter what you do. And every now and then you get something like the mom video game. The mom video game. And you have to kind of make choices in there, try to tell your mom what to do to get her out. But that's not really the choose or die element. That's kind of like a weird mini game, and all of them are like, okay, you know? So they eventually will find out more about the game. There's this weird bit where they find a video from the original creators that feels like an old Red and Link sketch. And it just doesn't work. I mean, I've said it already. No real sense of choice. All the scares are silly. And it just needs some humor. Overall, though, I guess maybe a lazy Sunday afternoon movie, and maybe a so bad it's good movie, but really, I don't know if I could recommend it for that. Not the best thing ever, but if you want to watch it, okay. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my 2022 playlist. I've talked about the Netflix Chainsaw Massacre. I've also talked about Scream, and quite recently I talked about Uma from Sam Raimi's production company. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.